Hi, thanks for joining It Can Be Done. I'm Bria.
I'm Brianna. Today we'll be discussing human trafficking.
Human trafficking is actually modern-day slavery. It takes place in many forms.
There are two forms of human trafficking: labor trafficking and sex trafficking.
Labor trafficking includes the use of force, fraud, or coercion to make people work against their will. Sex trafficking is the use of force, fraud, or coercion for commercial sex. Anyone under the age of 18 cannot consent and is automatically a victim of sex trafficking if involved in the commercial sex industry.
Children, including teens, are perfect targets for human traffickers.
According to sources such as Houston Coalition Against Human Trafficking website, every year 200,000 American children are at risk for sex trafficking into the sex industry.
That's a large number of children being exploited yearly.
Today we have with us Emily Lefrander from Houston Rescue and Restore Coalition.
Hi.
So Emily, what exactly is human trafficking?
Human trafficking is the buying and selling of people. It is completely exploiting a human being for the financial benefit or services they provide. There are estimates from 12.3 to 27 million people that are living in this form of slavery. So the scope of the problem is quite huge. There are two types of human trafficking. There's labor trafficking, which is forced labor against someone's will. And then there's sex trafficking, which if the victim is younger than 18, there is no need to prove that the victim was forced to do this against their will. It is automatically a sex trafficking. But sex trafficking is sexual exploitation against the victim's will. So human trafficking has two different ways of being exploited, but basically it is buying or selling a human being for the services they might provide.
I'm speechless at the number of American children who are exploited yearly. Can you comment on this large number?
Actually, according to the 2005 congressional hearing on the human trafficking bill, they found that anywhere from 150,000 to 300,000 children and youth are in danger of sexual exploitation in the sexual commercial industry. So it is a very huge number of children that are at risk for human trafficking. And in order to understand this, part of the problem is that with American youth, human trafficking victims are normally homeless youth, runaways, throwaway children. And basically that's because there is no family or support group or network, if you will, of children that these children can go to, that they are finding support from. So they are the ones that traffickers are going to utilize and manipulate because they are vulnerable because of their age and because of their lack of resources.
As American youth, what are some of the things we can look for in human traffickers?
Well, basically some of the signs of human trafficking victims would be abuse. Any signs of physical abuse, bruises, anything like that is always a red flag. Fear or depression, the inability to speak for oneself, any evidence that someone might be controlling another person, but with teens especially, a good example of human trafficking for a teen might be when a child or teen doesn't have much money, but then all of a sudden the next day comes to school with excessive amounts of cash with them, or they have all new clothes that are very expensive. These are red flags that you need to be aware of and watch and be careful for. Or that teen that has a boyfriend or girlfriend that is 20 or 30 years older than them, that's very controlling. These are red flags that you need to be aware of and try and watch for yourself and for your friends that they might be signs of human trafficking.
As for labor traffickers, how do they get away with them?
Well, a good example of that is actually, there was a Baptist minister he went to Namibia, and he recruited boys to sing in his boys' choir, and what he did was he promised them an education, he promised them all these opportunities, and so they came to the States and they started singing, but the Baptist minister, who ended up being a trafficker, pocketed all of the cash himself. He never provided them education. He beat them at times, he starved them at times, he threatened them and said, if you're not good, if you don't do exactly what I say, then I will, send you back. And in that culture, being sent back for being a bad boy would bring shame to their family, and so he is a perfect example of how he used force, fraud, and coercion. He used force in beating them, he used fraud and the false offers of education and opportunities that he never provided, and he used coercion in that he threatened them with being deported, with being sent back, and bringing shame on their families. So he's a perfect example of how traffickers are using all different types of manipulation to create psychological chains in order to control and abuse their victims.
Are there ways we can avoid becoming victims of human trafficking?
Absolutely. I think what's really important for American youth to know is that human trafficking is a problem and how that they can protect themselves against it, because the reality is that traffickers are recruiting wherever teens are, whether that be malls or parks or on Facebook or MySpace. Wherever teens are, that's where traffickers are going to be too. So it's really important that American youth know about this problem and at the same time are very careful with what information they give out, because any information in the hands of a trafficker is going to be something that he's going to use to manipulate. Any vulnerability that you give him, he is going to use that for his advantage against the victim. So it's really important to be very careful what information you're giving out, and also to have healthy relationships. The thing that traffickers use is your vulnerabilities as of age or low self-esteem or conflict at home, whatever that might be. He's going to be the person, or he or she is going to come in and try and manipulate you, but listen to all the problems. And so it's really important that teens have a good, stable network of people in their lives, whether that be friends or teachers or family, that are giving them love and support, because that's what if that's not there, then that's what the trafficker is going to try and provide under the guise of, I will be your friend, I will be this or that, and then later manipulate and use and abuse them.
If anyone out there viewing our show is a victim of human trafficking, either nationally or right here in Houston, what is your advice to them?
Well, if someone is watching this that is a victim of human trafficking, the first thing I would say is that you should call the national hotline. It is 1-888-373-7888, and this number is 24/7. You can speak in Spanish if you need to. It is completely confidential, and there is help out there. There are people that can help you with resources, and it is not necessary for a victim of human trafficking to stay in that situation, because traffickers use psychological chains to control their victims. So a lot of times victims don't understand that they are a victim. And so if there is a victim that's watching this, I would really just like to encourage them that there are people out there and there is help, and you don't have to stay in this abusive situation.
What do we do if we suspect that one of our friends or someone we know is a victim of human trafficking?
Well, similar to what I said for the victim watching this, I would say if you think that your friends could be a human trafficking victim, the best thing to do is to, again, call the national hotline. Because not only is it just for if you absolutely know that something is a human trafficking situation, but if you just have questions, if you see a situation that you're not 100% sure of, but you have a not sure feeling about, you can call the number and they will give you information, they will help you, and they will take that information down and send it along to the right avenues. But also, if you're friends with this person, or if it's someone that you're close with, you can have a conversation with them and say, who is this person that you're, if it's an older boyfriend, girlfriend, who is this person you're dating, where do you go, and what is that situation, or, where have you been, are you being safe? Just questions, is someone threatening you, is someone, forcing you to keep a secret? Only if you have that relationship with that person, because it's really important, no matter what, to call the national hotline first, because you want to get that information in the right hands.
Well, Emily, thank you so much for joining us
You're
to discuss
welcome.
this urgent issue.
Y'all are very welcome.
Thank you so much.